Okay, I want to begin by relating to the terrible massacre in Texas yesterday, where an evil 18-year-old entered the school that was in his neighborhood and shot to death 19 children. That's the number that we have so far, and 2 adults, 2 teachers, and they injured many, many more. This evil is really unfathomable. I don't know how we go on as a society towards healing, towards the soul searching that we need to do. I don't know how parents go on when they lose a child, especially in such a brutal manner. I don't know how classmates go back to school after experiencing such trauma. I just don't know. But all I can do is offer just a few thoughts today. I'm in the midst of writing a piece about this too. And I hope these thoughts will contribute to the collective healing that we need as a society and that we need also as individuals. So I will start, number one, by saying that I really believe that there is no room for violence, any type of violence. There should be zero tolerance for any type of violence in our society. So often we turn our heads the other way when we notice violence, when we hear violence. But there should be really zero tolerance. And violence is not just physical violence, it's also verbal violence. And sometimes also it's intention violence, violence that we might not be expressing, that we might be holding in our heads, and that in of itself creates an energy of violence, whether we notice it or not. There should be zero tolerance for violence. And I think that's where it begins. The most prominent violence in our society, I think, is verbal violence, whether through our mouths or through our loose fingers on the computer's mouse that feel like they have to respond to every stupid Facebook post and every tweet, and everything can be written. And under the cover of the freedom of speech, they go and launch this hate speech, this expression of terrible violence. There should be a complete stop to that, in my humble opinion, because eventually that can breed much greater violence, the type of violence that we saw yesterday. You know, Margaret Thatcher famously said that we should watch our thoughts because they can become words. Watch our words because they can become actions. Watch our actions because they can become habits. Watch our habits because they can become our destiny. It all begins up here and certainly then continues down here to our mouth. And we have to be very, very careful with the type of speech that we offer to others, and certainly the type of actions that we commit towards others or towards ourselves. So that's just the first thought. I have many other thoughts, but this is the first one, maybe the fundamental one. Number two, I think that naturally, and again, I refuse to speak politics, but there will be discussions about gun control in this country, gun ownership in this country. I'm not going in that route. I refuse to speak politics, but I will say that these discussions must include another type of discussion. And that is the discussion on how we can restore divine morals and values in our society. Because at the end of the day, what matters most is not so much the guns we have in our closet, but the values we have in our hearts. That's where it all begins. You know, in just 10 days from now, we'll be celebrating Shavuot, the festival in which we receive the Torah Mount Sinai. To be exactly 3,334 years ago. And there we proclaimed as a nation, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. What will we do? What will we listen? God's values and morals that he gave us on Mount Sinai, including the 10 commandments and the rest of the commandments of the Torah. God gave us a moral compass to know how to direct our lives in this world that can very, very often be a jungle. And it's time, therefore, we recommit ourselves to those values. A godless society is a society that can indeed create all sorts of terrible atrocities because it is godless. Have we ever feared a person that is God-fearing, completely God-fearing, that God forbid that person would murder us? I don't think so. I doubt it. Why? Because he's God-fearing. He knows that he's accountable to God, who told him in the 10 Commandments, who commanded him, do not murder. And a person who can, again, therefore, recommit himself to God's values is a person who's less dangerous. And we ought to teach our children, therefore, those very divine values. The fact that there is indeed, as the ethics of our father says, an eye that watches you, an ear that hears you, and a hand that records every single one of your actions all the time. Of course, this is referring to God himself. And children should do the right thing, not just because they fear the police or they fear being imprisoned. They should do the right thing because that's what God demands of them, because they are God-fearing. And they're accountable to God and are agents of God in this world and have to do the right thing because that's the reason for which they were created. I think those discussions also need to be included in all the political discussions that will ensue from now on. That's number two. Number three, I would also add that it is time we recognize evil as evil. There is no excuse for this 18-year-old. I don't care how young he was, and I don't care what background he had. Apparently he had a terrible family background or whatever it may be. I just don't care. Evil is evil. Evil must be eradicated. Evil must be imprisoned. Evil must be dealt with as evil. You know, you'll have, and I've already read many articles where they give excuses for this murder. Oh, it wasn't really his fault. I'm sorry, it was. It was. Evil is evil. You know, there's a great verse in the book of Psalms that says, Ohavei Hashem sinu ra. The lovers of God will hate bad, will hate evil. That's a strong expression. But I think the more we're in love with God, the more we have to reject evil. And giving any excuses to evil will give a platform for evil. Giving a platform for evil will allow evil to rear its ugly head as it did yesterday. And therefore, we must recognize evil, and we must eradicate it. We shouldn't give any room for it, any excuses for it. That's number three. Number four, on a more spiritual route now, I think that whenever we experience darkness in life, whether in our personal lives or in society, as Judaism has always taught us, we must respond to darkness with light. Light has the power to expel darkness, scientifically and spiritually speaking. Yesterday, we experienced tremendous darkness, tremendous evil, and we must therefore respond to that darkness and to that evil with more light and with more goodness. Yes, the immediate emotional reaction is to cry. The immediate emotional reaction is to be angry. The immediate emotional reaction is to go and write all these posts and articles, however good they may be. But the ultimate reaction must be to respond to this darkness with light, to this evil with goodness. How so? I would suggest that 19 children were murdered yesterday, 19 innocent lives were taken away from us, plus 2 adult teachers were taken away from us yesterday. Therefore, to respond to that, we ought to today, not wait till tomorrow, impact at least 19 children and impact at least 2 additional adults or teachers, if you want to be more specific. But we can't allow this evil teenager to create this void that is left wide open. We must fill it with our actions of goodness and kindness. And if you want to double it, which should be the Jewish reaction, which has usually been the Jewish reaction, then instead of focusing on 19 children, then focus on 38 children times 2. 2 adults, focus on 4 adults. But let's respond to this terrible act with goodness, because that's been the Jewish type of response for now over 3 millenniums. You know, and I've mentioned this before, every time we as Jews have experienced tragedies, we've responded with this burst of growth. So, for example, after the destruction of the temple, we created the Babylonian Talmud. After the Holocaust, we established the State of Israel. After the Spanish Inquisition, the School of Kabbalah in Sfat was also instituted. That's because we've understood that we cannot allow evil to win. We must respond to evil with goodness, to darkness with light, and yes, even to despair with hope. That's yet another point. Another point, if I may, and that is that, you know, just on a more practical and pragmatic level, we also have to ensure that maybe it's a lesson that ought to be learned, that our children need to be hugged even more, that we have to appreciate not just our children, but every day that we have in life even more, make the best of it. That's also another yet spiritual lesson from this. You never know, you know, the ethics of our fathers teaches us that we should repent a day before we die. Now, of course, the commentaries ask, but no one knows when they'll die. And the commentaries respond, that's exactly why. because tomorrow might be your last day. Today might be your last day. So live it up. Hug your children even more. Might be their last day, might be your last day. One never knows. This tragedy should therefore refocus our vision towards that which is truly precious in life, towards that which we hold truly valued and important. And that certainly is our children. Too often we dismiss them, or we don't have time for them, or worse, we're too harsh with them. To me, this tragedy again reminds me how precious our children are, and how we ought to express that the preciousness that we have for them in stronger and more revealed terms. And certainly not just for our children, but for every day that goes by, for every moment that goes by. We cannot not allow the moments of our day to be wasted on petty things and trivialities, as I see too often. Life is too precious. Every moment ought to be savored. Every single second, not just minute, every single second, you to be used purposefully. Otherwise, it's a complete waste. Otherwise, it's taking the greatest gift that God has given us, gift of life, and throwing it to the garbage. A tragedy like that reminds us of the preciousness and the value of our lives, the lives of our children, and of our time. And therefore, we ought to use it in the best, most purposeful and meaningful way. Those are just some thoughts. And again, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. But again, I'm writing a piece about it and maybe express myself more clearly in that piece. But that's to relate to this terrible massacre yesterday. And of course, we send our prayers and our heartfelt wishes to all of the families who were involved. And really, this tragedy should be the last tragedy of their lives, and Hashem should shower them with all of the blessings that they need, from healing to happiness. And may we respond again to this darkness with light, each one in our own way, and send that light towards that family, those families who certainly need it most.
Rabbi, that was excellent. Oh my God, that was so good. Nobody can say it better than you, Rabbi. But I agree with you. But I also think one of the reasons that I love going to CBT is because I always feel when I go to shul. I mean, the little kids, like you kids, they come up and they give you a hug. And it's just, there's so much love. And, we had the wedding the other night. I have never seen so much love in one room as I've seen going to CBT, whether it's Passover for the Seder. And these are people that maybe 2-3 years ago, I didn't even know. And all of a sudden I can feel their kids coming up to me. And I really want to bless you. You did such a fabulous job. Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Your words touch me. Thank you. Linda, yes. No, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, so that was very beautiful. But I feel like this is not political any longer. It's human. And it's not Republican or Democrat, it's human. And, I can't stand seeing this over and over and over and over and over, and something has to change. I mean, it is about, we need some action in this country. And it's not a political issue, it's a human issue. And as I understand it, the majority of people in the country want background checks, but it's stuck in whatever politics because of politics. And, we have to kind of take back our country, but I hear, and your words resonated with me, but I think it's about time we stood up and did something as people. We saw all, at one of the Black Lives Matter, this massive things. It's kind of, nothing is changing, and we continue to have horror story after horror story. This is unbelievable. And it's kind of like,
There's a lot of room for these discussions. Again, I'm not going to go into politics.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
I think gun control is a wonderful, maybe imperative idea. But
you teach us everything is about action. So it's like we need action.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. And again, I think there are wonderful ideas in relation to gun control, gun ownership, and some of them are imperative. But I think if we had to have a root canal here, if we had to go really to the very foundation, I think the foundation has nothing to do with guns. Even though, again, this discussion is imperative. The foundation has to do with the moral values by which we live on.
Well, we have some bad people in this country.
I understand, but badness comes from somewhere. Babies are not born bad. If we raise our children in a good way, they would become good. And I think that's the root of it all. But again, I'm not saying that there's no room for those discussions. There is tremendous room for those discussions, and actions need to be taken on a political level too. I fully agree. But I think we have to also go to the root of it, because that's putting a Band-Aid on it, or maybe a little more than a Band-Aid on it. But if there's a sick person, I have to deal with the root of the sickness, not just the symptoms of the sickness, as you know. So I believe the root is, again, teaching our children divine and moral values that they must adhere to, and we must adhere to. And I think that will tremendously minimize those types of events.
I completely agree with you, but we have a whole lot of people who are older than children right now who have not been taught well, and that's our big challenge.
That's right. But it's not too late. It's never too late to educate even
Hashem's ears.
I can tell you, even older people. I can tell you that from experience as a rabbi. Okay, all right. But thank you for that. All right, let's go on to the other topics here that was sent in this week. So since this is a roundtable discussion, so next topic here. Let me just start with no particular order. Shemita year. That's just the topic number one. Shemita year. I believe this is referring to the year that we are living in today. This year, 5782 in the Jewish calendar, is a year of Shemita. Shemita, you may have heard that word. Shemita refers to a year in which the land of Israel is on a strike, so to speak. No farmer is allowed to work the land of Israel. No homeowner is allowed to work his or her backyard, or plant any trees or tend to any trees in their backyard. And the land of Israel must be laid to rest during this year. It happens once every 7 years. And the reason for there are multiple reasons for that. And by the way, this has practical implications. For example, my parents who live in Israel and Jerusalem have trees in their backyard, and these trees don't belong to them during the 7th year. The land must be returned to God. There's no ownership over this land that they can actualize. And therefore, they have many neighbors or even just strangers who sometimes just walk into the trespass. But it's not trespassing, again, because the land is not theirs on the 7th year. So they walk into their backyard and pick figs and pick oranges or whatever else they may have there for themselves. Because again, the land doesn't belong to us on the 7th year. The land of Israel doesn't belong to us. It belongs only to God in the 7th year, and it goes and it rests, and it's on strike, so to speak. That's what Shemita refers to. But why is there a year like that once every 7 years? For multiple reasons. First and foremost, to remind us that God is a part of our lives, an active part of our lives. The farmers may think, oh, you see these beautiful fruits? Well, that came from our labor and our labor only. And then, of course, will build their ego and their arrogance. But the fruit doesn't just grow thanks to the farmer, it also grows thanks to the rain that comes from the heavens, from God. And it comes from God's blessings. So once every 7 years, we remind the farmer, remind everyone that deals with the land of Israel that there's a partner in all of this. Don't bring your ego up too much. God is an active participant in your life, and you have to be appreciative of his blessings. That's reason number one. Reason number two is so that the farmers don't define themselves by their jobs, as so often people do. Ask someone today in our society, who are you? You know what they'll tell you, or what they'll do? They'll give you the business card. Here I am, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm a doctor, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a rabbi. But no, that's not who you are. Ask a farmer, who are you? I'm a farmer. That's not who you are. Your land doesn't define you. You know what defines you? Your divine soul. Your heart, maybe. Your God-given qualities. but it's not just a particular side of you, facet of yours that defines you. So once every 7 years, the farmers are reminded, don't define yourself by your job. There's something greater than this land. Put yourself on strike and go define yourself differently. That's number 2. Number 3, I mean, there are many others, but let's just stay with number 3. And the once every 7 years, they have to take a pause so that they also recognize that the land of Israel must be a land that not only take from, but that they take from in order to give. The paying back type of notion, or the paying or the giving altogether type of notion. What I mean by that, for 6 years, the farmers are taking from this land and benefiting from this land. Once every 7 years, God says to them, stop being takers and go and be givers. And they have to stop being takers, indeed. They can't take anything from this land. And they have to find ways to give from all the benefits that they accumulated during 6 years. And that's for God to remind them that, and to remind all of us, that in life, giving is so much more powerful than taking. And what really defines us at the end of the day is how much we gave to society, not how much we took from it. So God wanted to educate us in the path of giving. And therefore, once every 6 years, he tells us, stop taking, go and give. Because that's really what you have in life. Or as my beloved Rabbi Allouche would often say, that you only own what you give, not what you take. You take doesn't go with you to heaven. What you gave stays in the hearts of the people that you gave to forever and ever, and it creates a ripple effect that is endless. So these are 3 reasons for the Shemitah year. Okay, next topic here. This might be basic, talking about the 10 Commandments. I think we referred to the 10 Commandments just before speaking of the Texas Massacre, but maybe 10 Commandments are commandments that really came to build a foundation for our functioning society. That's all I'll add to it. Next topic. I would like to know why a child isn't considered Jewish if the father is and the mother is not, when in today's time we can be certain who the father is. That's an excellent question. I'll give you the answer that Nachmanides provides to that. And that is that really we come from the womb of our mother. So what shapes us and our foundation most is our mother, not our father. For 9 months, we were formed by the womb of our mother, by what she ate, by her moods even. Today, there's science about that. How pregnant women have tremendous influence on the fetus, not just by what they eat, by what they feel psychologically even. So because of that, when we root our identity in someone, then we root it in our mother, because she really is the foundation of our creation, and she had the most influence on that foundation. Being Jewish is a foundational matter, and therefore we go according to the mother. So that's the answer of Nachmanides to this. Okay, next topic. Can you tell us about Sheva brachot, another beautiful Jewish concept? Sheva brachot really refers to the 7 blessings that are recited both under a chuppah at a Jewish wedding, and also for 7 days thereafter, each time the bride and the groom have a meal with family and friends. So Sheva brachot really refers to 7 blessings that we offer to the bride and to the groom. That's what the concept actually means. Sheva means 7, and brachot means blessings. I want to go deeper into this, and the reason there are 7 blessings, and you'll see, by the way, that the number 7 is quite dominant in weddings, in chuppah ceremonies, and that is because number 7 in Judaism is a number of completion, number of wholesomeness, I would say. And that's really what marriage is about. It's about taking my half and uniting it with my wife's half. And together we are one. In fact, the Kabbalistic idea is that a bride and a groom really are 2 halves that are united. They were split at the very beginning of their creation. And then when they marry, they come into one. to represent this wholesomeness, we say 7 blessings. There are other things. For example, there's a Kabbalistic custom that a bride surrounds her groom 7 times under a chuppah, during the chuppah ceremony, at the onset of the chuppah ceremony. Again, the number 7. But again, these are, therefore we have 7 blessings. Now, I'll add just one more thing about the Sheva brachot, and that is that the 7 blessings are blessings. If you look into them and to the text of the 7 blessings, you'll see that they speak not of love, as you may guess, not even of the secret of a happy marriage. You know what they speak about? Almost all of them. They speak about the idea that a Jewish marriage is really rooted in the past of the Jewish nation. And because it's rooted in the past of the Jewish nation, it also is almost a vote for the future of the Jewish nation. It's quite a beautiful idea, but if you think about this, every time a Jewish bride and a Jewish groom get married, they are proclaiming to the world that through us, there will be Jewish continuity. We are not going to get become one, procreate, and create this Jewish continuity. So we are voting for a Jewish future. We're tying ourselves to the everlasting chain of the Jewish nation and producing yet another ring and another ring onto this chain. And that's really what the 7 blessings are all about, which is really an idea, a tremendous idea, because it also infuses the bride and the groom with this idea that marriage is not just about them. It's about that which is greater than them. It's about their responsibility also towards the Jewish nation. Maybe it's a heavy load to carry, but it's also a beautiful load to carry. And that's what the 7 blessings are all about. Okay. Next topic. Let's discuss a simple gesture to do over the summer and always to make a difference in someone's life. So that's a great suggestion. What can we each do over the summer, especially now as we're about to take a break, to make an impact on someone's life? So I don't know if to do this or not, but I will share with you one of the big dreams I have for our community, and dare I say for our world, because I think that if it is successful in our community, it can spread very quickly to the rest of the world. This is like a startup idea that I've had for a long time, and I think I'm willing to launch it in the next couple of months. So bear with me. This idea is based on the fundamental belief that, number one, we are here not just for ourselves in this world, but we are here to make an impact indeed. But also, the second belief is that God planted us in Scottsdale, Arizona, or in Phoenix, Arizona, wherever you may be in the world, because God believes that you can make an impact right there in Scottsdale where you are, or more specifically, on the street on which you live in. Otherwise, you would be living in a different street. God planted you in that street to be God's agent of kindness and of goodness on that street. Otherwise, again, you would be living somewhere else. So this is what the startup is based on these 2 great beliefs. Therefore, my idea, and this will lead us into the summer suggestion, is to take our beautiful community of CBT, go over all the list of our members. Thank God we have close to 400 members now, and see exactly where they live, and have CBT create for them. We'll be the brains, if you wish, but we'll create for each and every one of our members a guide and even kits, whether it's Shabbat kits, holiday kits, goodness and kindness kits, and guides that come along with them, and then provide all of these kits and all of this richness to all of our members, and ask them indeed to assume the role of being God's agents on their street, or better even in their neighborhood, and ask them to reach out to their neighbors, to reach out to their fellow friends in their neighborhood, and teach them about Jewish values, invite them for Shabbat dinners, bring them donuts on Hanukkah, and Mishloach Manot on Purim, and start making an impact on the street that they live in, because again, God sent them to this street. They don't just happen to be living that street. God sent them to that street. so that they can become agents of goodness and kindness on that street. Again, we'll provide all the information, and I'm still working very hard on the content to provide and all of those different kits and make it really accessible and attractive and relevant. But that's the big startup idea, transforming every one of our members into agents of goodness and kindness where they live. And I think that this can take off. If it's successful in our community, other communities will copy it, and we can truly create a ripple of goodness and kindness in the entire world. That's what it's all about. So now, going specifically to the summer suggestion of how we can make a difference, maybe start doing it even without the headquarters giving you the content, but maybe start doing it this summer. Reach out to your neighbors. And by the way, in Arizona, people, especially in the summer, where they're enclosed in their own four walls because it's so hot outside, they yearn for connection. So maybe reach out to a neighbor, maybe just one neighbor, start with one neighbor and create a relationship, whether they're Jewish or not, doesn't matter. Create a relationship, and a relationship of kindness. Maybe invite them for Shabbat dinner, or maybe better, just cheer them up. Everyone has issues these days. Maybe help them up with an issue that they may have, or just give them the impression, the sincere impression that you are here for them, that they can call you anytime. Or maybe it's a matter of just bringing them a few eggs because they ran out of eggs in the refrigerator. But create a relationship, because again, God planted you in that street to be his agent of light and of goodness on that street. So that would be my humble suggestion. But again, it's connected to this big startup idea, which will be enrolled in the next few months.